All right, let's get down to business. Day 2 of the marathon, Resident Evil Apocalypse 2004. This one is less of a random story and more like a DLC slash Resident Evil, like alternative timeline, excluding Carlos for some reason. Like, why did you guys put Jax Briggs in here to replace Carlos? Why was Jax Briggs in here from Mortal Kombat? Straight up. Like, you guys got, if you don't believe me. And then Nikolai's here. But he's a good guy. AKA, by the way, Nikolai is the dude from A Christmas Story. If you guys want to see my quick bit on A Christmas Story, look under the holiday playlist. I did the same thing that I'm doing with Resident Evil, except 12 Days of Christmas. It was so fun. It was so tiring. Please watch it. Thank you. But as I was saying, there's Nikolai, and then this dude that played a Magi in the Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, the far superior Mummy, even though it was whitewashed to darn. It was whitewashed to darn. Like, we can admit that. Nobody's going to tell me, oh, well, they came in. It's like, yeah, there's post-colonialism, but pre-colonialism, they didn't look like that. Thank you. But literally, this story seems to have been made while on crack and after listening to someone who was blind describe all the Resident Evil games to date all at once on recordings. There's a dude in a wheelchair named Ashford who has a daughter in grade school. Literally, dude, why'd y'all do that? I'm not 100% certain, but I could say maybe 50% or 60%. I'm certain that girl's name was going to be Veronica. How much you want to bet? Because you don't just use Ashford out of nowhere. You don't use Ashford out of nowhere. I don't care if that's your grandmama's maiden name. You don't use Ashford out of nowhere. They literally looked at Resident Evil Code Veronica for a lot of the things that are in here. And Resident Evil 3. Like, what on earth? What was this? You guys have so many games to look at for a story, and you decide to make a collaboration of everything we love. That's not how you make good things. You like donuts, right? You like pizza? You like ice cream. Do you want all that in a blender and put in a drink for you so you can suck, like drink it up? No, you don't. You want those things separate. Just make a good separate thing. That's the biggest gripe I have with this movie. It's one of the worst, honestly, because it's not its own thing like the first one. It relies too much on other things that were better than it. But like I said, Ashford dude who's got a daughter in grade school. Jill is literally a side character in her own game / not game-based movie. And I said Jax Briggs from Mortal Kombat makes an appearance. Mike Epps does as well. That's pretty interesting. This dude, he just plays Day Day, just to let you guys know. If you guys seen After the Friday with Chris Tucker, if you've seen, he just plays Day Day. So I'm going to be referring to Mike Epps' character as Day Day. I think his name is LJ or something, but no one's name is LJ. Like, y'all literally just say, okay, like, let's go down the J's. BJ, RJ, like LJ, LL Cool J. Okay, let's do it. And that's how you made his name. It's pretty hilarious and disgusting at the same time. This movie is all over the place. There are 4 different stories going on. There's Resident Evil 3 / Resident Evil Code Veronica going on. There's Alice's story, there's Umbrella's story, and then there's Day Day's story. Going from apocalypse to extinction, Day Day has his own separate story. It's interesting. But he is one of the main people who are well known of the cast, aside from Mila and the dude that plays the Magi, and even Nikolai, but he dies. So I can't even say, but I can say the Magi because he makes it through. Spoiler. This is all spoiler. If you guys don't read the description, which I highly recommend you do for all of my videos, this is going to be spoilers everywhere. These are like really old movies anyway. They're not black and white, but like, you know. But let me just talk about the first problem that occurs. The first problem occurs when you realize the first movie's premise of being solely inspired by the games goes out the window. And now we have this alternative timeline, double dip territory where the movie seeks so desperately to be its own thing, while very much so wanting to steal very significant aspects from the games, like Nemesis, Jill, the Ashford family name, Claire's literal scene from Code Veronica opening is like, vampire's kiss. I don't say chef's kiss, I say vampire's kiss, so get with it. When you hear me say, this is mwah, vampire's kiss, you know it means mwah, chef's kiss. So that's your one and only warning about that. If you want to know more about Vampire's Kiss, I recommend you watch that movie. I couldn't really get through it. I saw Nicolas Cage eat a cockroach. I was really done with it at that point. But it's hilarious. It's super hilarious. But I digress. So to get started, I want to give credit to this movie, for showing Raccoon City before the zombies, just that peace. Like, people are like going to work and everything before they threw our favorite characters and lore for no reason inside this situation. Like I said before, this could have been great if they didn't try so hard for it to be a mixture. This seems more like it's forming some mutated beast, honestly. Charles Ashford. Why not call him something else? Like, stay away from Code Veronica if you're not going to make a remake story or a movie. Stay away from Code Veronica. I don't even want you looking at it because you guys are sucking from the teat of Code Veronica and you're giving nothing back. Stop doing that. You are literally worthless. They literally put Umbrella everywhere. Just if you're confused at who's the bad guy, Umbrella is everywhere. And there's a certain scene that happens that Jill literally is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that they shoot civilians. Like, y'all were told to go back to your house. And no, I don't think that's a good, it's horrible. It's all horrible. But it's just like, okay, so do you want the virus to escape? The virus escaped anyway, even though they started shooting at civilians. But it's just like, I feel like Jill wouldn't have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they were shooting at us. Like, and then another thing I forgot to talk about. Jill is introduced as like a disgraced cop. I'm like, what? A disgraced cop? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, how are you going to put some things in the canon that's in there and then like make up your own stuff? It's super annoying and it's super confusing, and stop. But let me talk about this thing before I go any further. Side note, like, there's this clip of the woman, there's like a newscaster woman who is on the TV and she's like, still no explanation for these unexplained killings. Like, what? Isn't that the same thing? Still no explanation for these unexplained killings. Like, okay. Like, just that quote alone, you just know what you're in for when you watch this movie. So another quote like I hate from this movie is when Alice like joins the ragtag team and Jill's sitting there like, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Yes, you are, Jill. Yes, you are. You're better. Like, you, as of right now, as of Resident Evil 3, you have already beat the mansion. And yeah, you had your alpha team there, but guess what? You also had some interlopers interloping in that alpha team, making it harder for you. So yes, you are that good, Jill. Quit playing. Oh my goodness. And then I just realized something. Not only did they steal, they stole. It's stolen. When you don't do good, it's stolen, okay? Like, it just becomes stolen. So not only are they going to steal plot points of Resident Evil 3, Nemesis and Jill included, and then excluding the ethnic person that barely looked ethnic to begin with in the previous installments before the remake, Carlos, in exchange for Jackson Briggs. You are also going to gloss over the fact that Jill was infected. And yeah, whatever. You could play games and say, oh, well, this, that, and the other. I'm not going to concoct some cockamamie bullcrap story that you're going to defend this crap. I'm just going to say they took things out of 3 that would have worked way better than what they did put in here. It's like strange. It's weird. And y'all used Nemesis just like Capcom just used Lady Dimitrescu to sell Resident Evil 8 when she's only in it for 25% of the game. They used Nemesis for this movie to get people in because they're like, oh my goodness, Nemesis. Let's go see Nemesis. Like, but it's not even, Nemesis isn't, he goes and whatever, but he's also being controlled, and also he's not his own agent, and he's not whomping Willow around, and he doesn't mutate, and a lot of things that he doesn't do. But I digress. So the ending scene is redone. I'm kind of fine with that. I like when the sequel goes into the same thing, like it's the same thing that happens. The cinematography is really its own thing, with a mix between hazy and dazed, perhaps to hide the mistakes. But I think it takes away from the work the makeup department did on the zombies. Like, honestly, I really like what they did with the zombies. And for a lot of the series, it's just like, it doesn't really linger on exactly the zombies themselves. More like if something's going on with them, like if they're attacking. But I get it, I guess. I get it. So, like I said, it's canon that Jax goes from winning the Mortal Kombat tournament and leaving, and then going to Raccoon City, because Jax is up in here. He could have been Carlos, but I guess I understand why you didn't make him Carlos, because he dies. But guess what? That was no excuse, because Carlos could have been the one that was infected, and then they would have had to get something, and he could have been alive, and everything would have been fine. Yes, some people would have been butthurt that Jill wasn't the weak woman a weak woman is and gets, like, infected, but she was infected originally. I would understand people being upset that Jill wasn't infected, but guess what? Nothing's the way it's supposed to be. I'm good, but I'm not that good is happening. So, but Nikolai doesn't die. I mean, Nikolai shouldn't have died, I'm guessing, and he dies. So there was really no reason to not include Carlos, honestly. But that's just me. But like I said before with Jill Valentine, the bad guys literally fire on civilians to contain the virus. They released, though. So it's kind of like annoying, because it's just like, y'all released it and y'all are like, oh, well, I guess we gotta shoot y'all. Which still makes no sense in the grand scheme of things, because it still got out. It was like airborne for the most part, but it makes no sense if it was airborne, because how it would have had to reanimate people, just like the T Veronica virus did. But like I said, it's a mixture of Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica. It's just a mixture of that. You just have to accept that in order to even bring to light anything that happens in this movie. All the scientists are taken out of the city by Chopper, except our least favorite Ashford, because his daughter Angela, aka Veronica, is missing. He sends our ragtag team to find her. We got Alice. We got the news lady who's like recording everything. We got Day-Day. We got Jax Briggs on the battlefield, while Nikolai, aka Braceface from A Christmas Story, runs along. The Magi from the Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. Way better than Tom Cruise, Tom Bruce, Tom Schmooze. You lose. That was bad. Terrible. At this point, we've seen the Lickers return, the dogs and whatnot. I wish they were more into the movie. Like, I wish Lickers were not just in one place, because they were like on the streets. But whatever. They were inside, kind of. They were kind of like animals, really. They were like, for the most part, they were in packs of like 2 or 3. But we only get to see them like in one place. And it's just like, okay, that's real interesting. And it would have been cool to see like Nemesis attack other creatures that were hostile, which would have helped with the situation with Day-Day not being a threat. Wouldn't he have killed him anyway? Because they were like, oh, look, survivors. They were trying to kill STARS members because they were like good at their job at finding people and protecting them and helping them. But all survivors can still tell what y'all did. And I know that they were going to blow up the city anyway, but like, what was the point of killing the STARS members if you were going to blow up the city anyway? And I know Nemesis was released to test and whatnot, but 6 different times, this dude's like, this is what we've been waiting for. Activate Nemesis program. Oh, activate Nemesis program. Maximum overdrive. Like, honestly, like, how many times are you going to activate the Nemesis program? Like, what were you really waiting for? Were you really waiting for the virus to get out? Were you waiting for test subjects? Or were you were waiting for all of the above, honestly. Like, they don't know. There's no direction with this movie, and that's why I hate it so much. See how we be going in a circle because you guys don't know what you want to do? I wish we had, like, hunters. But by this time, Alice has already been introduced as a BOW. Again, she's not a Mary Sue. Guys just call female protagonists that because their moms were weak and they expect weakness from all other women on earth. She's just the main character. Unfortunately, I really don't want her to be one. If Jill's going to be in here, she should have been the main character. This is when Alice should have made her exit from the movie. And if y'all wanted to do that clone thing, then she could have came back as a clone. But the original Alice should have been dead. Just saying. This should have been the movie Alice died in order to kill Nemesis. Maybe while she was fighting with him, something went on. They kind of do this Claire, Steve Burnside thing where he's like, oh, Alice, I know who you are, so I'm gonna not hurt you. Like I said, took almost everything from Code Veronica and not giving back to the Code Veronica by remaking Code Veronica. Y'all love to talk about how it's just a bootleg side quests movie or side quest game, but guess what? Resident Evil 4, literally all that island crap that happened over there, literally no one else was there. Literally, I don't care about Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 could fall off this face of the earth and I would still be fine with everything else that we got. 1 connects to 2, 2 connects to 3, 2 and 3 connect to Code Veronica. Code Veronica connects to 5. Yes, it does. If you don't believe me, watch my gameplay of Resident Evil Code Veronica and you tell me who's in there that's connected to 5. I'll give you a hint. You know what? I'll do better and I'll give you the answer in the video. So go watch my video of me playing Code Veronica and you get to see who's in there that's also in Resident Evil 5. But look who's not in there that's in Resident Evil 4 just talked about. I'm not going to argue with you guys about this. Code Veronica gives more to the timeline than Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is just for everyone who likes Leon and wants to play a Leon game. No one cares about Ashley Graham. No one cares about Ada's situation when it comes to, we got enough Ada in 2. We got a lot of Ada in 6. We got some Leon in 6. Just deal with 6. Code Veronica should be Resident Evil 4. The original Resident Evil 4 should fall off the face of this earth. There really is no reason. It's just your fan. It's insert yourself. It's, oh, I'm on this adventure. I'm so strong. I can do roundhouse kicks. I'm cool. The girls like me. That's all Resident Evil 4 is. It's just for the boys to be like, oh, this is great. I'm such a great hero. That's literally has nothing to do with the story. Las Plagas and whatever. Okay, whatever. But Resident Evil Code Veronica actually provides concrete information, puzzle pieces that fit into the next story that's being told. I just can't. I'm getting off topic. I digress. This is the second problem I have with this story. Alice is emotionless because at this point she's a BOW, obviously. So anyone who says, oh, she's this, that, and the other, shut up. She lacks human emotions and sympathies at this point because she's basically a BOW. But she was sadly kind of like that before. So I guess that's a problem. If she were more dipsy and a little more like, oh, help me, I guess it would have been a better transition. Because I know that she's got the range to be this way. So she can be the other way. Problem number 3. Nemesis. His story conflicts with what he does in the movie and what the game even is about. Resident Evil 3. He should have killed Day Day, but I like Day Day. It's whatever. I don't understand how he was considered not a threat. The implications don't matter at this point because Day Day was literally brought through solely because he was one of the highest build in this situation. Did you know who Jill Valentine was as an actress? Did you know who she was? Because I didn't. I didn't know Jax Briggs either. The only people I clocked as anyone who I knew was Alice, Magi, Day Day, and dude from A Christmas Story who... Tell me when the last time you saw him do anything. But whatever. I just feel like Nemesis, his situation, that thing where they were controlling him and doing all that, it was just a plot device and it was annoying. I get that Day Day was supposed to be the comedic relief and that's why he stayed alive for the majority, the whole time. But it just it conflicts with how he was, how Nemesis reacted and whatnot. Problem 4, Jill's inclusion at all. Jill's inclusion at all. Jill Valentine? Her inclusion at freaking all. And then no Carlos? There's no Carlos. He could have still lived. I believe the Magi is supposed to be Carlos, but you killed him off in extinction. So I don't understand why Carlos was excluded from this final draft. You didn't want us to think this was Resident Evil 3, then you shouldn't have included Nemesis. If you didn't want us to wonder why Jill was even here when other things happened, then you should have included Carlos. There's so many things that could have been easily dealt with if you would have just included Carlos. Honestly, I really don't quite understand why you just didn't include Carlos. Like, Jax Briggs doesn't even belong here. It's the wrong game. Maybe you got confused because you're so high on the crack. You don't know that Jax Briggs is from Mortal Kombat, not Resident Evil. I get there's blood in both games, but you're going to have to work with me here. You're going to have to figure this out. You're going to have to understand logic, and you're going to have to stop playing games and putting people in movies that shouldn't and ought not be here without other people. It would have been insane if you would have had Jill and Leon here without Claire. It would have been insane if you would have had Steve Burnside up in here. It would have made absolutely no sense if you would have included every single person in the canon. That's not what I'm asking for. If those are any of those things that I just said crossed your mind as I'm critiquing this movie, you dum-dums, because it literally has nothing to do with them. It has to do with you took Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica and you splashed it together. And then you took some of the stuff out with your hand and dirt got in there. And this is what we got. So I'm just trying to help you out. And the best thing that could have happened with this was to include Carlos. Because then we wouldn't be asking where Carlos is. We wouldn't be asking why Jax Briggs is here. And she's acting like she cares about him so much like that was just Chris who died. I'm just like, okay, that's not a critique on her being upset that Jax Briggs dies. It's a critique on why on earth is Jax Briggs even here. And then the inclusion of Jill goes down a whole nother avenue. Jill plays side fiddle to Alice in this one. Oh my goodness. Alice should have died in this movie, honestly. This is when I get offended that Alice even exists. When you start if no one's there for you to siphon, you can make the argument that, oh, I'm not a mixture of Claire and Jill, and they're not there, so I can't really compare. But when you put someone who's already in the games, in the movies, right next to your main character who has nothing to do, you like whenever Mortal Kombat the movie came out and Cole Young was supposed to be the main character and he was playing side fiddle to all of our regular characters, everyone said he pulled a Mila Kulovich because Alice did the same thing to our characters. Except the way you did it in this movie was more insulting, because we didn't even get to see any of our characters. And like I said, don't put everyone in here just because we want Resident Evil characters. Do it logically. Logically is, if you're going to take almost all of the aspects of Resident Evil, the husk of Resident Evil 3, you best believe we're going to be asking, where are the characters from Resident Evil 3 when you have Jill in here? Yes, we will. The next movie could have followed the survivors of Raccoon City and brought in Resident Evil characters organically. Y'all just threw Jill Valentine in here, and then you're going to put disgrace on her name, talk about, oh, some disgraced cop. Didn't that happen afterwards? I don't know. Because she tried to tell everybody what happened at the thing, and it's just like, yes, exactly. But the first movie wasn't about that, so why are you even bringing it in here? You only brought it in here to bring context to Jill. And if you were going to bring context to Jill, she should have been brought in organically and not thrown in here because you needed someone in here. We're going around in circles. The plot basically can't function without Jill, sadly. They leaned in too much on the lore while simultaneously forsaking it. It's weird. The end is interesting and sets up for like the next movie, so I guess that's okay, honestly. But it seems like things are missing, but we're still following Alice's scope. If she doesn't know things, then we don't know things usually. I'm basically done with talking about that. Let's talk about the 10 RE staples that I always go through when I talk about the games, the movies, whatnot, what is supposed to be in the games. I'm about to play Resident Evil 0 on Twitch, so look out for that. And then I will post the playthrough, so check that out on my channel. So, number 1, horror. It's less gory than later installments, but eventually the saturation of the movies, when I get to Extinction, I'll talk about that, resembles Westerns and blood looks black. So the movie does all right here, I guess, in comparison. It's okay, so that gets a check. The puzzles, not applicable, honestly. Like, there really weren't anything that I could say was a puzzle in this one. 3, backtracking a bit for Alice to get her memory back, but that only has to do with with Extinction. So I'll talk about Extinction when I talk about that backtracking. It's more like in her mind when it comes to the backtracking. But if you notice in Extinction, when I talk about it next, they pull the whole backtrack situation. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, but they don't. It's really strange, like I said. Number 4, tyrants. Let's go through this. Let's sidebar real quick. Let me get this straight before I go. All tyrants are BOWs. Not all BOWs are tyrants, okay? So let's learn that and then continue. Nemesis looked way better and was more threatening in this movie than in the Resident Evil 3 remake. That says it all. Number 5, different perspectives. Like I said, too many storylines. They eventually merge, but Day, then the Stars members, then Ashford's storyline, then Allison's. That's a lot to handle. So that's like a yes, no, maybe so thing. Zombies, viruses, and BOWs. The enemies, the dogs, the lickers. I liked them. They were good. Like I said, wanted to see more of the lickers. I didn't see absolutely no hunters, and hunters were running up and down the streets of Raccoon City. I don't know what you're talking about. Willis. Number 7, corporations, anti-capitalism. Basically the whole story. So it was less prominent in this one because it was more on action side. Speaking of action, number 8 is gameplay for games. From now on, I will be referring to 8 when I'm talking about movies as the action within it, related to if it were gameplay. I think most of them only do action this well when Alice is on the screen. When it's other people, they look very incompetent compared to her, and that's one reason why people say, oh, she's a Mary Sue, when she's just the main character. Look at any other male main characters, they don't have equals unless they're the enemy. Yeah, Harry Potter, Hermione was good and all that, but they weren't asking Hermione to take down the Dark Lord. For some reason, though. Like, if I was them, I'd be like, Harry, you fall asleep in school. Hermione, take him out. She didn't even try, really. But it's not her story. This is Alice's story, so I can't take that away from her, but I can reprimand the person who even made this and thought that you could steal from Resident Evil to sell your movie on a hope and a dream when you barely even care about canon enough to even say, literally, you could have picked any name from any scientist that was ever in Resident Evil, from the secret reports to regular people that we know already. You did not have to make this man's last name Ashford. It made literally no sense. Number 9, continuity. None of them have any continuity. They all will fail number 9. Number 10, overall story. I hated it. It's the worst collaboration of new and old material I have ever seen in a while. Resident Evil Apocalypse gets a 6 out of 10. And I'm being quite generous. I am being quite generous. Because if I think about it too long, I would say 3 out of 10. Because why did you include Jill and exclude Carlos? Why did you have Jax Briggs up in here? I know y'all got it mixed up. I know his name ain't Jax Briggs. I guess. I don't remember his name because he wasn't important enough to know his name. But overall, honestly, 6 out of 10. A very generous 6 out of 10. It gets kind of worse from here. I actually think this is the worst one. I actually think this is one of the worst ones. If there was a Mount Rushmore of worst Resident Evil live action movies, this one would be the first head. And I'll talk about the next heads in the next videos. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, follow my stream, follow me on Twitch, The Princess of Darkness. Subscribe to my YouTube if you like content like this, and if you like Resident Evil talk. I talk a lot about Resident Evil. I talk about Kingdom Hearts, Mortal Kombat, just all around gaming. It would have been nice if instead of Verse, we actually got Operation Raccoon City, because even though I hated that story, when I tell you I hated that story, hated it with a passion. They allow you to kill Leon and Claire if you want to, which makes absolutely no sense to the canon whatsoever. But on its own, I loved the gameplay. I loved that it was online. I loved that when you died, you didn't just fall out or you were just eaten. You turned into a zombie and you would attack your own team members. They had the best gameplay online that ever existed for Capcom. And they fumbled and tumbled and trumbled the ball with ruining the story. They didn't need to have Leon or Claire in it, but they decided to do that. This could have been a side story like Outbreak or whatever, and I've never played Outbreak, so I'm not going to really talk much about it, but that's it. Done.